So hi everyone. Today I'm here with
Hi.
Beatriz, who's a very good friend of mine. And today, what we actually want to talk about is the completion process. And we're also both certified completion process practitioners. And it is a special process for trauma integration created by Teal Swan. And we were both very lucky to both be trained by her. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you today about the process, Beatrice, because I know we're both very passionate about it.
Hell
And
yeah.
I recently actually got my training this year, but you already had it a few years ago, right, Beatrice?
Yeah, I was um, chosen for the training in September 2016. It was in Michigan, and I am so grateful that I was a part of that training because it was a very safe setup. Like I had like half the group were people that I knew and were friends with, and yeah, it was a really, really great experience. And I actually met Sanne at her training in Sydney, Australia back in May of this year.
Yeah, yeah, that was amazing. So yeah, actually that's how we met. So at my training, Beatrice was helping as a practitioner at the training.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it was really nice to meet you there. And
yeah.
but I also noticed with everyone, we all find the process in a different way. So how did you find the completion process?
Well, I found Teal's work in, at the end of 2014. I had been dating a guy and it ended really badly, like really painfully. And the pain from that relationship catalyzed me into a dark night of the soul. And I had been looking around on Facebook for like spiritual groups to join and be a part of because I was really wanting like a sense of community. And so I just started typing like spirituality in like the Facebook search bar, and Teal Tribe, which is Teal Swan's Facebook group, popped up. And I joined it. I had no idea who Teal Swan was. I thought Teal Tribe was just like a cool spiritual group name. And so I joined it, and like I didn't see any of Teal's posts in the group. I didn't see any of her videos, any of her content. I just saw a bunch of people being really vulnerable and like sharing their experiences in the group and getting support. And so I was in the group for about 5 or 6 months before I finally decided to um, like be vulnerable and reach out to somebody who I had seen like constantly like giving people support. And I told him like what I was experiencing and what I was going through. And he sent me Teal Swan's video called Healing the Emotional Body, and it's basically like a short version of the completion process that she filmed for her YouTube channel. And I watched it about 3 times and it just blew my mind. I could not believe that, like, I could not believe the stuff that she was like putting, the information that she was putting forth in the video was stuff that was so foreign to me because of my family dynamics and my experiences growing up. I was raised in a household where my family basically said that emotions weren't like valid. They didn't want to look at emotions, like emotions were not okay in my family. And so watching that video and hearing Teal Swan talk about how important emotions are in our emotional body and trauma, I just was like, wow, this was like a foreign concept for me. And I ended up taking myself through the completion process just by virtue of listening to her take Blake through the completion process. And my body, like the moment that I closed my eyes and I like decided to go inwards, my whole body started shaking. I had this like crazy like trauma release happen, and it ended up happening for like over an hour. And I had all these memories come up and like all these different like thoughts come up that I did not realize had affected me in such a, it had like impacted me in a way that it did when I decided to finally go inwards. And So that was my first experience of the completion process. That was how I found out about it. And then from there, Teal Swan released her book, I think in May of 2015. I bought the book. I ended up getting facilitated by a practitioner, and it just kind of like took off from there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Yeah, for me it was, I think, very different because I was already very into emotional healing work. When I actually found out, that's kind of how I found out about Teal Swan. So I was watching a lot of videos, reading a lot of things, and then one day her videos popped up, and then I also saw the video about healing the emotional body, and I
Yeah.
thought it was really cool. And then later I started to research a little bit more about her and about her work. And I already started to read a few other books of her, and then I also saw she had the book The Completion Process. So then I just ordered it, and I like read it in a few days, which is not
Yeah.
normal for me. Normally it takes me ages to read a book. I only read a few books a year because of that. And
Yeah.
and then actually during my reading of it, already things came up, and experiences, and then actually through the book I just took the guidance, and then I guided me through the process. And yeah, it helped me so much, but then after a while, because I was really struggling with anxiety at the time, so that
Mm-hmm.
is actually where I wanted to find a solution for. Because before I also had experience with illness and heart disease, and that got me into an alternative healing methods like the completion
Yeah.
process. But at the time I was already healed from the physical illness, but I was still struggling with anxiety. So I just wanted to find a way for it. So then the completion process really helped me. So every time I kind of did the process, some symptoms kind of that I had faded away, because I went into
Wow.
the trigger instead of suppressing my anxiety, what I did before. And then at some point, I kind of felt kind of stuck in it, because I felt like uh, then when I wanted to go into a specific trigger, so that anxiety, um, kind of my mind started to blank out. So I started to go blank. So then I was in it, and then it just faded away. So kind of like my body was in resistance to going in it. And
Yeah.
then I contacted a practitioner, and she also told me that's very common with anxiety. Because with anxiety we experience so much resistance. There is also sometimes resistance in going into it yourself. And so yeah, when I contacted her, yeah, we immediately clicked so well. I think that's very important when you're going to contact a complete trust practitioner, that when you meet you have to have that click, that connection, and
Yeah.
that initial trust. It's so important to trust the person you're working with. Yeah, and we had like this amazing click. Like I never
Mm.
expected that, and we're still in touch. And yeah, I'm very happy for that. And when I contacted her, I was already interested in becoming a practitioner myself. But
Yeah.
after doing the process with her, I was like certain. And the crazy thing was that I was also struggling with addiction a little bit. So I was
Mm.
struggling with a weed addiction. So when I did the process with her, it was already a lot less, and I had a lot more control over it. But the crazy thing that happened, I couldn't do it anymore after our session. So completely,
Mm.
like the pain that I was covering with my addiction, I kind of found resolution for that in the process by going into that pain. And then like completely afterward, that desire to engage in that craving to engage in that addiction and trying to numb my pain or numb something inside of me was like gone. And
Wow.
Yeah, it was also, I think, because of the inner child work, because you're also working with your inner child in the completion process, because we're going back to like childhood traumas or childhood memories. And I kind of was like, I was like met my child who was so joyful, and of course she was really sad first, when
Yeah.
I was re-experiencing the memory, but afterwards like finding resolution in a creative way and going to like a safe place. I kind of connected to the inner child, and when I was trying to smoke again, I was like, I can't do this. It was kind of like feeling like I was hurting her. And
Yeah.
because a lot of our destructive behavior, if we would kind of think and imagine, oh, we're doing that to like this innocent child aspect that's in us, then a lot of things we just cannot do anymore. And because we all have self-harming behavior, but all in a different way. And I think this process is very good to help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of how
I
I
agree.
found it. And then afterwards, I was like talking to her about it. And then I was like, I want to be a completion process practitioner. And she was like, yes, you should be. And so I immediately applied for the first training. And I didn't know when it, no, I wanted to apply for the training, but I didn't know when the next training was going to be. So I just applied to that you will get a notification for the next training. And I was like, I just want to get this training, you know, when is it going to be? And I also planned to travel to Australia. And then I think a few weeks later, I got like this notification that the next completion process training would be in Australia. And I was like, perfect. Yes, I'm going to do this.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Wow.
yeah, then it happened really fast for me. But yeah, it's helped me so much, and it still can really, really help me. So
Yeah, of course. I'm wondering, like, I think it would be a good idea for us to talk about what the completion process is for those who are watching this video and are either new to Teal Swan's content or just finding this randomly on their YouTube suggestion pop up. Um, would you like to go ahead and talk about what the completion process is?
yeah, so the completion process is like the specially designed process for finding a resolution for your trauma. So a lot of times trauma can be seem like a very like big word that we associate with very extreme experiences, which is trauma. So for example, rape, um, physical abuse. But what basically trauma is unresolved stress. And we've all have experienced this. And this unresolved stress, it continues to influences our lives. That's why we constantly get triggers. So we get trigger of being really angry, or what I had to become really anxious. And in the completion process, you kind of, instead of avoiding feeling those things, you go into it and you allow yourself to completely feel that. And by allowing yourself to feel that, you will lose that resistance that you have to these emotions, and you'll kind of let these emotions or physical sensations in your body guide you through the moment when you first experienced this. And this is kind of like the moment or the memory where it all started from and where it all came from. And then you allow yourself to experience that again as your child self. And then after you re-experience that memory, you'll find resolution, a solution for yourself in that memory. So kind of to figure out a creative way to resolve the situation and to kind of get back your power and to feel empowered. And then when you kind of feel like you completed that, then you can go into like what we call the safe haven, which is a safe place where kind of like your child self can get all its needs met that it didn't meet before. And also in that safe haven, you kind of you go, for example, we always have this what we call purification, where we kind of completely let go of all those things that were still inside us because of that memory. So you're kind of being purified from that. And so it's a whole process. So it's a little bit complicated to explain it shortly. But what you basically do is you kind of rejoin yourself. So it's when we have, how do you say, and when we experience trauma, like it's like an aspect of ourselves stays in that memory. And what we do in the completion process, we connect to that aspect again. And then we'll go through the process where we completely allow ourselves to express these feelings, find solutions for it, and meet our needs. And so it's a whole process, but for me, it's really powerful because afterward, you feel more complete. And that's also why it's called the completion process, because you will find completion, you'll complete the trauma cycle. And because that's why it's still affecting us, because the trauma cycle isn't completed. And that's what you kind of do in the process.
What I love about the what I love about the completion process. Well, what I love about the completion process is like so many of us, when we get triggered, like let's say our boyfriend like is not answering our text messages, he's not calling us back, and we're sitting there and we're like freaking out. We're like, oh my God, he doesn't love me anymore. Like he's gonna leave me, he's gonna dump me, he's probably cheating on me. Like when we get these like intense rises of emotions, these like emotional flashbacks, these triggers, what the majority of the people today do is instead of going towards it, they run away from it and they'll like distract themselves. They'll go shopping, they'll be on social media, they'll drink, do drugs. Like we do everything. The society that we have today is set up to do everything that we can to stay away from our inner world, to stay away from our emotions. And what I love about the completion process is this process is basically set up to help you go towards yourself with like love, compassion, understanding, to really like understand like why is this affecting me in the way that it's affecting me. And I really love that with the completion process, like instead of going outwards and distracting yourself, you're basically going inwards and you're sitting with the emotion and you're giving that sensation, that emotion, the missing experience that you needed when the original trauma happened. Because like any of these triggers that we have in today's, in our lives today can all be linked back to when we were younger and we were traumatized in some way by whatever. Like, it could be like our dad leaving for work every day was so traumatizing for us because we were like we were in anxious attachment, like when we were younger. Like, or it could be linked to you're upset with your boyfriend not returning your phone calls, not texting you back. That could be linked back to when you were younger and your dad used to leave for work every day and you didn't know when he was going to come home. And like that in and of itself is very stressful for a little kid, because you don't have the mental capacity when you're a little kid to understand like, oh no, dad's going to come back home like at 7 o'clock and like he's just going to work, like, and this is something that he needs to do to support the family. Like when you're little, all you know is like, oh my God, I want dad, I want to be with dad, like I wish he was here to hold me and I miss him so much. And like that rise of emotion, that trigger, because it does not get resolved for the majority of the people, like the majority of us, when we get triggered when we're younger, we don't have people coming towards us and being like, sit with this, breathe into this feeling, know that this is understandable that you're feeling this way. For the majority of us, like we don't get that kind of like love, we don't get that attunement, we don't get that presence when we get these like intense rise of emotions. And so with the completion process, like what I love about it is that you're going towards your emotions and you're going towards it with like unconditionality. You just are going towards it with like, I want to be with you because you're valid and you're important. And you know, you're basically giving yourself the missing experience. You're like, I should be feeling this way, like it's understandable that I'm feeling this way. And you're sitting with that until you can feel like the relief in your body. And then you're asking yourself, when was the very first time I felt this way, and following that emotional trigger back into the memory of the first time that you fragmented because of whatever caused you like a high level of stress, you know, that trauma. And what I love about that is like you get to meet your inner child's needs. Like you get to give them the missing experience, either you, or with the completion process, it's an 18-step process. So like, you know, you, if you're interested in the completion process, you can look online. There's a lot of videos on YouTube that Teal Swan has, or there's the book, The Completion Process. But basically, you'll have a safe support person, someone, it can be either like an actual like non-physical being, it can be somebody you know. You know, your inner child's very creative, so it's whoever you feel safe with. Like you bring that safe support person in if you can't validate your inner child's like um, feelings or needs, or like if you can't be someone to like support your inner child at that point in time, you can bring them in to do it for you. And that in and of itself is so healing. And I think with the completion process, what like a lot of people don't realize is like, you know, when we fragment, like so many people have such a hard time with the completion process and taking themselves through the completion process because they're so attached to having a memory come up, like, you know, where they're actually like seeing something like a movie play out. And like with the completion process, like, you know, especially when we're younger, like for us, like sometimes it's just going to be like an emotional experience that you're going to be experiencing when you ask yourself, when was the very first time you felt this way? And
Yeah,
yeah,
because
I,
that's what I have as well. So I think it's very good that you mentioned that, because what we a lot of times think with re-experiencing or a memory coming up, we think about the visual.
yeah,
And yeah, I had times when a visual memory would come up, but a lot of times it wouldn't. It was more like felt based. And
yep,
because when we're very young, so the younger we are, the more feeling based all our memories are, because that's how you kind of experience the world, is mainly through feeling. So also when you go back to a very early childhood memory, it's very normal to not have any like visual memory come up, or only like a more vague or very subtle visual memory. And that's completely okay. So
mm-hmm,
if you're doing the process by yourself, like Beatrice just said, really focus on the feeling. And that's
mm-hmm,
where it's all about. It's all about feeling it. Because what's usually like traumatizing is that our sometimes it can be your physical needs, but that our emotional needs aren't being met, and that the way we feel is not okay. And when you're in this process and you're being present with yourself, you send out this different message to yourself, like it's okay to cry, or it's okay to be angry right now. And that's a lot of times what we didn't have, that validation that it was okay to feel this way right now. And that is like so important. And also when you learn to do that in the process, you can also do that more in your daily life, to kind of be present with uncomfortable emotions. And that's the most loving thing you can do to yourself, and also do to your inner child, is to just be present with it and send out the signal, it's okay, I'm going to be here with you.
yeah, I agree 100%. I was just thinking I'm wondering what your perspective is for like somebody who is doing the completion process, but is finding themselves like continuously being stuck in the process. When do you think is a good time to reach out to a practitioner for help?
Yes, so I think you should always first ask yourself, like a lot of times you already know, but sometimes you can be afraid to reach out to someone.
Yeah,
And I think what a lot of times the reason why we cannot find resolve is doing the process by ourselves is because the pain is created by isolation.
yeah,
So that just we actually need someone else, or that we need someone else to see our pain. And I think if you feel like no one sees you, or no one understands you, or no one sees your pain, or for example you find yourself in a lot of resistance for going into the memory, that's a good time to reach out to a practitioner. And also if you feel overwhelmed by it, it's all completely
yeah,
okay.
that's a good one.
And it can also be kind of scary for a lot of people to go into completely go within and experience all these things that we're usually avoiding. And
Hmm.
yeah, or what I had, that you feel like when every time you go into it your mind blanks out or the feeling goes away. Yeah, and always feel into it, and so feel when you're ready to receive the help you need. And I would
Yeah,
recommend it for anyone. And for example, for people who cannot afford it, you do often also have some practitioners who offer free sessions or in the beginning or a discount. But if you really cannot afford it, find someone else who can be present with you or just sit with you. It can be a friend you trust very much. But what I find, so in my case, what I wanted was really professional help. So someone who really knew what she was doing, um, because I felt that was what I needed at the moment and at the time. So ask yourself, and if you really want help and someone else to be present with you, set that intention for yourself to find that person. And you can just look on the website of the completion process, and there you have all these different practitioners, and there are a lot now. So I do feel like there's a practitioner that fits. There's always a practitioner that will fit you. This will be a good match to you. So really follow your feeling process.
yeah, yeah, I agree 100%. Like, I think if you're somebody, if you know that you're more of like a logical person, or if you're just not used to being with your emotions, or if it feels overwhelming, or if you're feeling lost or scared, or again, if like your trauma is like isolation trauma or abandonment trauma, like that is indicators that maybe it would be helpful for you to work with a practitioner. There is nothing more precious than getting presence from somebody who is safe. There is nothing more precious than having outer validation, external validation, sorry, from somebody else. Because I know for me, like a lot of my trauma is like I was constantly invalidated by my family. And like I had such when I first started taking myself through the completion process, I had such a hard time validating my inner child and validating my emotions because I am so programmed and wired to be like, well, this isn't valid. Like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. And so it was so important for me to work with somebody who could sit with me and be like, can we just get present to how fucked up this is? Like, can we just get present to like how messed up your parents treated you when you were little? And like, it is so understandable why you're feeling this way. Like, I needed to hear that from somebody because that allowed me to feel safe enough to go deeper. Like having somebody sit with me in my pain too, and validating me and giving me love. Because like there was a point in time where like I could not give myself that experience. Like I just couldn't. Like I was like so programmed to like, and I was in such a state of like self-hate as well, like where I just couldn't like see why the way I was feeling was valid. So like, if you're in that kind of space, like that is an indicator that working with a practitioner would be a very good idea for you. Um, because like we can do that for you. Like it doesn't all have to be you. Like, and if you have trauma around like being like the emotional support person too in your family or with your friends, like that's also a good idea. That's like an indicator that having somebody facilitate you would be a good idea. Like, and if you're unsure, a lot of the practitioners offer consultations, so you can sit down and you can be like, hey, like this is my experience growing up, this is what I've been feeling, this is what I'm scared of. And that's also a good time to be able to meet the practitioner, feel into them, listen, like get to feel their energy and be like, how do I feel with this person? Like, would I feel safe enough to like let this person take me into very vulnerable parts of my inner world? Like, would this feel good for me? Yeah, so I think if you resonated with anything that we said, in terms of like when would it be a good idea to work with a practitioner, like consider it.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing more precious than having somebody, again, there is nothing more precious than having somebody sit with you in those states and like help guide you into them. And also, like Sanne was saying, like if you find yourself having a lot of resistance to the completion process, to your emotions, to your inner children, those are perfect indicators to work with a practitioner. And also, like if you're somebody who's really good at mental chess, like or like talking your way out of it, bypassing, positively focusing, like those are also good indicators to work with a practitioner, because we can see those patterns, and we can redirect you and refocus you back into your inner world, into your pain, and help you and help you feel safe and like contain you in a way where it feels good for you to actually be with those parts of you. It's yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And because I think it's, for me, it was like one of the best decisions ever
Yeah.
to, because I was the person you talked about that was always supporting other people, but I never allowed myself to be supported. So allowing myself to be supported by others was actually the healing I needed.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times what we all need is connection. And yes, by working with a practitioner, you can learn that you allow others to see yourself, to see you when you're really vulnerable. And it will definitely improve your relationships. For me, it will improve your career. Like everything in my life has improved because of that. And of course, we will always find new things. Like even practitioners that have been working with this process for years and years, but our life also continues to improve. And even when life isn't that good, we can be present with ourselves. Like, for example, now when I'm sad, I can just be sad. And yeah,
And
I think
that's so healing. That is so healing, to like let yourself go through the motions and like ride the waves of like your grief or your sadness, or like letting yourself express your anger. Like what I love about the completion process is like I'm not scared of my emotions anymore. Like if I'm feeling a certain way, like I will let myself feel it. I'll let myself express it. I will get either validation from myself or presence from somebody else. And like I move through things so much faster now. I used to stay stuck in this like really weird, like numbed out, depressed state constantly before I found Teal's work. And it's so beautiful to see how letting yourself fully and unconditionally feel an emotion will it's just how easy it is to like move through it when you're not in that state of like I shouldn't be feeling this way and like pushing against it. When you go towards it, like it's just like you'll notice that like it's not gonna impact you for as long as it would have if you push it, tried to push it away. Like that charge won't be there.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. And um, yeah, if I think so, if you have anything else to say or to recommend to someone that wants to try out the process, wants to find a practitioner, is there any last recommendation you have?
Yeah, well, I think with any kind of technique or tool that you use in your healing path, doing research about it. So going online, watching videos, reading practitioners' profiles, connecting with other people who have been facilitated through the process, and just really like checking in with yourself and um, seeing like what your motivations are for wanting a session. I think so much damage can be done when you're wanting a session to fix yourself. If you want a session for anything other than just like being like pure unconditionally present with the emotion because you care, that's an indicator that that in and of itself can cause even more trauma and pain and division with yourself. So yeah, check in with yourself, see what's motivating you for the session, book a consultation, feel into the practitioner, um, and I think that's really the best advice that I can give to somebody who is like curious about the completion process is just do the research. She has a book. There's thecompletionprocess.com. And there's a lot of people online that you can connect with who have experienced the completion process that can share with you their experience and how it impacted them. What
Yeah.
about you?
I think that was great. And what I also want to add is like really follow your feeling and also find connection with other people that are going through the same thing as you.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, uh, there's also a Facebook group for the completion process. So when you're reading the book or you're trying out the process and you find yourself in any problems, you can also put that in that group and then people can give you advice as well. And yeah, and when you feel you're ready to work with someone, like I said, just book a free consultation. And yeah, when finding a practitioner, really listen to your feeling, and then you will find the right person for you. And set your intention, like you said, to be present with yourself and not to fix yourself, but to just find out what is going on within me
Yeah.
right now and to see that completely without any judgment. And yeah, so if you have any more questions or anything, yeah, just feel free to also send us a message or just comment down below on this video. Yeah, because yeah, I know that you're not alone and that you're not the only one going through this. And I think that's what we learned on our journey as well. We're not alone. We're not the only one experiencing pain and things like this. So Beatrice, I really want to thank you today for being here for this video. Yeah, it was amazing to connect with you again. And again,
Yeah.
if you guys have any questions, always feel free to ask and reach
Yeah.
out when you need to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to add in if you are curious about booking a session with me, you can go to www.beatrizreyna.com. I take a very intuitive approach to my clients in my sessions, and most of the people that come to me need like a motherly, nurturing energy. So the majority of my sessions, I give that. I give a very motherly, nurturing energy. You can also reach out via email. We'll drop our email information down below. And how can somebody reach out? How can somebody book a session with you, Sanne?
And you can just visit my website, sanneheart.com. And yeah, if you're curious, you can just book a free consultation on my website and just see if we connect. I'm someone that is very intense in my work. So that's why first we're just going to connect and see what you're at. Because I like to go really deep, and I will create this very safe space for you to allow yourself and to feel confident doing that. And that's why I say just do it when you feel ready for it. You don't have to force it. You don't have to push yourself. And yeah, follow your feeling. So you can also just go to the completion process website, as Beatriz said, and then you can find any practitioner that you find that connection with, because the right person will show up for you.
Yeah.
So yes, I hope this video was helpful for you guys, and yeah, thank you for watching.